And we are live on Oz Property Invest, bring the big names, and we have the big fun. And it is going to be a huge land subdivision session night. We have everything from the beginner of developers, Divina, whatever that is, and along to the more advanced. So stay tuned for that. If you want to whet your appetite with developing, we've got something for you. If you're on the big development subdivision menu, stay tuned. But Carson, how you going? West Coast Eagles.
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Voice is a bit crackly, but we'll charge on. But no, thanks for having us on. It's good.
That's impressive. I'm very well, yeah. Like Joe and I love a chat. So if you need to go and get a glass of water, we can. Yeah, but good. Thanks for still coming on, because I reckon one of us, Joe or myself, would have piped out if we had a voice like that. No, voice is great. All right, making yourself conscious now. Joe, how are you going, man? What's happening?
Mate, I'm pumped. I'm very good. Mate, we got our live event. So we're doing a live event this Sunday, 14th of September at the Shangri-La Hotel. We have a boatload of property investors, but there are limited tickets available. So if anyone is keen on coming, bloody hurry up. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it's probably too late, but anyone that's live right now, I think
it just sold out. We just sold. No, we didn't. There's no scarcity there with that either, actually, because there is scarcity because it literally is the seating arrangements. I mean, we can, so no guarantee. Yeah. So jump in and get that seat now. I'm so excited. I'm preparing my presentation, but Joe, sorry to steal your thunder. I just want to know how you're going though. Don't worry about the live event.
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm pumped for tonight because this is the thing about property development. Everyone wants to be a property developer. Well, maybe not everyone wants to be one, but they see the results. And then I feel like property development is like shrouded in this air of mystery, and that you've got to be the cleanest, like a swish guy, and you've got to know absolutely everything and have all of this knowledge. And what I like about your story, Carson, is it's just, humble beginnings, like same as Jeff and I, right? We've built quite good portfolios, done very well in property, but it's not from anything. We're not PhD. We're not super smart. There's nothing really special.
Speak for yourself, Joe. I mean, I'm a little.
Hang on. I've not gone on here, but your story is super relatable, and you've just crushed it. And it just goes to, like, I see a lot of really smart people, like people in tech, people in IT, and they overanalyze and they don't make decisions and they don't do it. What you've done, Carson, is, what do I need to learn? Okay, great. I'll go learn that. You learn it. And then you're like, great. Well, now what do I need to do? I need to take action. Okay, let's take action on that information that I've just learned. Who's going to give me that information? Okay, I'm just going to hire a contractor that's role is being nerdy in all the data. So anyway, I'm pumped for this one, mate. How are you, Jeff?
Good. I'm excited. Everything's just. I mean, I'm not excited about this bloody. We had about 18 inches. No, we didn't have that much rain. We had a lot of rain down here today. Literally, golf courses turned into lakes. So if that gets you excited, I won't talk about it all that much more. But Carson, I'm pumped for this session as well. You ran a carpet cleaning pest control business 15 years before you even did this. So that was the headline. You went from carpet cleaning to $100 million worth of development deals in the pipeline as well. Grew up in the wheat belt in WA, so humble beginnings on a sheep farm. And you've got the development. You're now salt development projects, specializing in those challenging sites. So you'll talk about a few of those. You'll sprinkle those throughout the session. And you've got the PTR, the proven track record that everybody sort of talks about. You've been doing this now probably for was it 2020 when you did your first deal?
Probably when we started scaling into bigger subdivisions. Like before that, I spent 5 years kind of educating myself and fumbling through probably more of an investor than I'd call myself. I thought I was a developer, but I'd probably be more of an investor, just buying stuff with multiple titles, because I knew that was the lowest hanging fruit to, developing, and built a couple of houses and sold one. And then, then I did a DA on a corner block where the house was to one side, and we got a second dwelling approved for like a duplex. And, I got carried away with the design and completely overcooked that, and it just didn't stack up. So I just sold the DA, and then kind of my third deal was a subdivision. But that took me 5 years to do those first two, because I'm a slow learner. And it was good to kind of have the training wheels on for a few years there, and learn and watch other people do stuff before we kind of scaled slowly. So
yeah, there's so much in that, just that first little lesson. And the one thing that I picked up from it, though, is you talked about being an investor versus developer. I'd love for you to unpack what that looks like, because I imagine there's a lot of people in the audience who are investors who may think they're developers. But how do you think about those two things?
It's a good question. I think it probably was an active strategy. So I guess I guess it was development in a sense, but when I compare it to subdivisions, it's a lot more active. So with that one, the first deal that I did, once again, I didn't have any of my own money. So I managed to get the folks on board for the first two deals. Carpet cleaning, I had 3 kids. And when we bought that first deal, I was only making, I think it was like 45 grand a year. And my wife was, stay-at-home mum full time. So I couldn't even get a loan for a car, let alone a house. So I had to, I dragged my folks along to an event and said, look, I want to learn how to do this stuff. I need a vehicle. I was doing all sorts of courses. I was doing bloody Forex. I was doing, how to sell Amazon online. And then I was like, I'll do property development as well. I just need a good horse to get on, because I was working my ass off cleaning carpets, but I just wasn't getting ahead. And we're still doing, long hours. And I would have been better off just working for someone else in the end. But I always wanted to work for myself. So I got the folks along. They said, all right, let's go do a deal. I can see that you're not going to get ahead unless we help out. So we, like I said, that first deal was on 3 titles. So, we paid $355 for that. We separated the titles 2 weeks after we settled, and it was valued at $510, 2 weeks later, because they amalgamate the titles so you don't have to pay one set of rates. So, and a guy 50 years ago, bought 3 blocks side by side, built his little cottage on one of them. And, that's a strategy that I learned. So I thought I'll just go after that. So I was just putting, titles, lots into the keyword section of realestate.com every day and refreshing it, just trying to find something on multiple titles. And that was a cracker. In hindsight, I should have just sold the blocks, because I built 2 houses, and what they cost me to build, it was the extra that I sold them for. And that's probably why I just sell dirt today. It cost me, I think back then, extra 500 grand to build these 2 houses. And what the land was worth, it just, it didn't make any sense to actually build it in the end. But I learned a lot of lessons about how to clear vegetation and, what a DA and a BA and all this stuff was, which is all just Chinese, when you first hear it, all these acronyms people throw out. So, I slowly started to understand that stuff, and away we went. So.
Mate, I feel like you've really gone deep into the beginning, but how did you make what was the shift in the business side of things? Because you had your business, you were running it, working hard. What was the kind of shift to go into property and give it the all? Like having a chat to the parents, was there something that was missing from before? Like, what did that look like?
I always loved property. So when I left school, I went and do my real estate license in WA. So I went to REWA, tried to get my license, and I come from the bush, went to the city, and 3 weeks in, I was failing the unfailable course essentially. And then I had the first day of because my folks bought an investment property, and the real estate agent said, I make $60,000 a month, and I was like, I know what I want to do now when I leave school. So I rang him up afterwards, and he said, all right, well, come work for me. And I went into the office, excuse me, and there's 2 agents fighting over commission, and I was just so far out of my depth. So I just said, stuff this. I quit that day, went back to my uncle's strawberry farm, and that was me. But I always loved property. So I was one of those guys that would just scroll realestate.com for hours. I couldn't afford anything, but I was like, it was a passion that I always had, but I just couldn't afford to get a loan. So I lie. Me and my wife, when we first got married, before we started having kids, we bought an investment property, and it had a good yield in Caloundra on the Sunshine Coast. But I bought it at GFC 50 grand less, and I thought I was hot shot, and then I couldn't afford to hold it, and I sold it for 5 grand more than I paid for it. But I lost money on the ins and outs. So, like I said.
I hope you don't look back at what that one's worth today, man. That's probably, depending on, I reckon you probably bought it for 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 maybe.
Yeah, 270. Yeah, for
270.
with ocean views.
Yeah. Imagine that must have been so heartbreaking as well, buying it at 270 and then selling 2 years later after paying stamp duties, legals, all of the buying costs, and then selling it, and then the agent costs. Like you're well and truly losing money. It's funny that you talk about like the real estate side of things. I actually got my real estate license certificate in 2015. So what's that? 10 years ago now? Because I thought real estate agents knew about property investing. I thought that they were the ones that held the property knowledge because they deal with the property. And then I did all these interviews and I was like, great, talk to me about investing. Talk to me what you're doing. And then they're like renting out these leased BMWs. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't that bad for your borrowing capacity? And I'm like, but what's your salary? And they're like, oh, my salary is like 50, 60K and it's all commission. I'm like, well, that's going to take like 2 years for you to be able to borrow. And I quickly realized that they're not the ones. Just because just because they look flashy, it doesn't mean they actually have all of the money and they actually understand property investing. So what was it that drew you to the real estate? It was the investing side of things, not so much like the selling and the sales process of being in real estate. To
be honest, like originally it was hearing that he was making $60,000 a month. That was the thing that got me initially. And I had no idea what I wanted to do at school. And I was like, well, if I got no idea, I might as well do something where I could make lots of money. And he was like the number 2 agent in Perth, and he was willing to take me under his wings. I thought, oh well, that's not a bad opportunity. And like I said, I pulled the pin on that and started my carpet cleaning journey, which probably wasn't the smartest move either. I probably should have stuck it out. But anyways, it's So yeah, no, you're right. It's like I said, I've always had that interest in property, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And I've got my license now purely just to on sell the odd site because I was flicking stuff off for a fee here and there, and I was like, I need to get a license to do this. I was finding more development sites that I could afford to do because back then I didn't understand the money piece, so I was completely restricted by having a joint venture party that could afford it. And after the second deal, my folks were like, we're retiring, we're tapped out, we don't want to do anything else. And I was like, oh crap, now what do I do?
So your first deal, you got I know you already kind of covered a little bit, so you got your parents to help you get into that one. And how did you structure that one? Like because we've chatted before this, and I think you've evolved quite a lot. And you had things structured in one way, and then you realized that you can do it a little bit different with joint ventures. Like, how did you think about that, and how do you think about that now?
So that one was just we just had a joint venture agreement with the folks. That was just a standard company trust structure type thing, and we just kind of split the profits at the back end of it. I found it and was the kind of working capital the sweat equity type things, and they just didn't want to know about it. They just wanted to be purely passive. So and it's quite scary, initially the first time I pitched it to someone else, because you're asking for someone for money. Like my risk appetite for myself is actually probably reasonably high, but when you're dealing with other people's money, it's terrifying, so after doing all the education, I took 12 months to find the first deal because I was just so scared of losing the folks' money. And so just buy anything. Like, what are you doing? Like, you keep pulling out of deals, putting due diligence clauses in, then pulling out. And I did that like 6 or 7 times because I was just almost self-sabotaging the deal, because I was just like, if this goes wrong, the Christmas dinners are going to taste a bit different. So
there might be one and only Christmas dinner, but not that I shouldn't be suggesting that. But no, that's when I hear you sort of say like other people's money, and you really wanted to respect and you pulled out of deals. For me, that sort of starts to make the hair stand up on the back of my neck, because I want to, whenever we get somebody on who's into developing and doing those creative strategies, to me, I think I get a little bit concerned, because I just think I know how I see people losing money from these type of things. And then the people, and there's not always a responsibility. I'm not saying it's necessarily always the provider's fault, but yeah, I just think it's a space where there can be a lot of money made very quickly or over the space of a couple of years, but it can also be lost just as quickly. So before you sort of go on to talk about how you went from deal number one and then sort of started to scale things. How do you think about the responsibility with other people's money, and what sort of questions should people be asking if they're contributing money to deals?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and that nothing grinds my gears more when you see people not respect people's money. And I see it on Facebook groups as well, where people are trying to raise money like illegally. You need an AFSL license to ask for money to a certain, once you get over a certain degree. I think it's 20 people or something in bits and pieces. So there's all these things that people just aren't talking about. I mean, my business partner, we met a developer, and he had a deal, and he put down a little bit of a deposit. He needed some more money, and so he invited all these people out for lunch. And the first thing he did when he shook our hand was like, "Have you got $1 million?" And it was like, "I'll give you 20% return." And then like we said no, and then like the next Monday it was like 25% return, then 30%, then went to 40% because he needed it by that Friday, otherwise he was going to lose his deposit. And so like I say, to some of our coaching clients now, I'm just like, even if you're the person giving the money, you also need to take responsibility for the developers' numbers as well. You can't just take that as gospel that those are going to be the sale prices. You need to do your own homework. But for the developer themselves, a lot of them just don't respect the money. And, that's really grinds me, because I've seen a lot of people lose a lot of money. Like in some of these groups I've been in 10 years, I know one person that lost $30 million of people in that group's money. And I've watched it happen in front of my eyes. And that's normally because they get too big, too quick, and get all excited, make 500,000. Oh, let's make 5 million, or they have a couple of wins, and then they just go for the Hail Mary, and it all comes crumbling down. I've seen it happen lots of times. So, yes, it can be done right, and like joint ventures and that side of things has been incredible.
Are there any obvious red flags that you kind of see that you're like, oh, no, watch out for these kind of things? If someone says this, like prime example, I'll give you 20%, 25, 30, 40. Are there any other kind of red flags? And like, I mean, one of the ones that I see a little bit is like how slick the suit is, and how slick the marketing material is, and how much money is spent on that. And that's not really a representation of the reality. Like, if it's super nice, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad deal, obviously. But I see a lot of people that have that slick marketing spending a lot of capital into that to get all these people in that may not, that will fall for it. Not saying that that's necessarily a red flag, but just, if it's very slick and the person's really pushy, I'm a little bit concerned and worried.
Yeah, 100%. You want security on your money, for one. A lot of people give money over and don't get any security, whether it be, a caveat or second mortgage or something. And sometimes that, as you would know, Jeff, with the lending side of things, can complicate it a little bit. So that's why a lot of the time they don't do it. But you need to get some kind of security. But also the other thing is, like, court the person first. Like, you want to know who I hate saying this, but like who you're getting into bed with at the end of the day. Like, because you can have all the paperwork, you can have all the joint venture agreements and everything done and do that. But if it all goes south, it's still going to be messy, right? Yeah. And look, development is notoriously risky in and of itself already, which is why the margins are so good. But and sometimes things can just go wrong as well. Like, I know experienced developers that still make mistakes now. So, like, red flags would definitely be, returns that are too high. For some of the super slick guys as well, you'll see, if you look at their feasibility, they'll have like a big acquisition fee for them finding the deal, and then they'll put these huge project management fees in there as well. So they're almost pulling a really good clip out of it. And then we'll share the profits with you. I was like, yeah, but they've already taken 20, 30% off the table. Whereas we would just go 50-50 down the line or whatever. Early days, I was only taking like a 15% cut because I was like, I'm inexperienced here. You're taking all the risk on me. And I actually said, look, don't even do a joint venture agreement. Let's just do a project management agreement. If I'm terrible, you just pay me a spotter's fee. And if I'm good, then we'll share in the profits. So there was no risk to that person. They were on the title. I wasn't on the title. And the risk to me was I worked for free if she was just like, wasn't going to pay me, and it all worked away. But we ended up doing 6 deals together, and we had a really good relationship until we got to a point where, we can do our own stuff. But so, unrealistic returns and you want to know what's their experience as well, because everyone's got to start somewhere. But can they bring in a project manager maybe to help manage the project, to de-risk it a little bit? So you want to know what their experience is for that deal. The returns, the security, and the experience.
Yeah, that project management fee, because like acquisition fee is like a buyer's agent fee, right? Like it shouldn't be too crazy. And then the project management fee, like what should we be kind of thinking? Like 2% for the buyer's agent, like the acquisition phase, and then how much for a project management fee is like fair and reasonable?
Look, it depends on the size of the project, obviously, and the complexity. Some guys will charge 2 to 3% of gross realization. I think that's probably a bit heavy. Like I think, if you're sharing in the profits as well, I would like to see it light. That's just me, and that's how I operate, because I'm a small fish. But project management, it's $100,000 or something for like a decent sized project, or $50,000. But that's if you're making a couple of $1 million profit. I don't want to see 2-3% of gross realizations and bits and pieces. I just don't think. And sometimes your town planner can do development management, and your engineer can do development management, and that's enough as well. Just that second set of eyes. And if you're starting out, it's probably money well spent than like a full blown project manager if it's a simple deal. Getting your town planner to hold your hand and getting your engineer to do that next level, to get them to quote on it, I think that's invaluable for your first couple of deals. A little bit less profit at the end of the day, but at least you're going to de-risk it a bit more, hopefully.
Yeah, you really want to crawl. You really want to crawl before you can walk, and then walk before you can run, particularly in developing, because the first one I did, it was really a little bit scary, because you're like, shit, I'm putting a couple $100,000 on the line here, and that might not sound like a lot of money to some people. We're talking about $100 million worth of deals here, but we promised people we'd give them the sort of the starters. We want to sort of those people that are development curious, maybe the investor who wants to dabble their toe in developing. So how do you sort of think about what should we bring up a deal, Joe? Is that sort of where you're going? I'm looking at the slides, but I'll ask the question I was going to ask. How should somebody think about, because we're talking about before the show, how does somebody get started in developing if they, rather than investing, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think once again, there's two ways you want to look at it. Are you wanting to just learn the process and make a bit of profit on the first one, or are you wanting to make a lot of profit, like your 20% margin? So typically your banks and private lenders don't want to fund you unless you're making 20% margin. So that's a pretty good metric to use as a rough rule of thumb, unless you're doing something where you can service the debt, and if you make your 15%, you might be happy. So like, I think most duplex sites are, unless they're like really high end and luxury, are kind of around that 15% margin, give or take.
Yep.
And so, but those little deals, like I was saying, with the multiple titles, or the little 1 into 2, 1 into 3, like sub 1 into 4, you're not going to make a lot of money on that. You're going to learn the process, and if you can make $300,000, I think that's not bad, even if it's 10 or 15%, because you're going to learn the process before you kind of scale to the bigger stuff. But it's just going to be harder to get funding. So you got to have a line of credit or something where you can actually cash fund that side of things, as opposed to getting development finance for it all. So if you can do those little deals, great. If you've got a little bit more behind you, it's just as difficult to do a 1 into 2 to 1 into 3 as it is to 1 into 5 to 1 into 10. That's what I've found.
And it can often take just as long as well, maybe depending on the slope of the side and all those sort of considerations.
Well, it's just little roadblocks. I mean, so Jeff and I don't know if we mentioned this, we're doing a subdivision 1 into 2 in Townsville, where we're putting a rooming house, like a five lot rooming house in there. And we haven't talked about this, but we engaged a plumber to do a jump up from the sewer connection, but you need to get council to do it. And stupidly, I said, great, you're a plumber, you go do it and organize it with the council, please. And he's like, yeah, I've done it before, I don't really like doing it. I'm like, but can you do it? He's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then it's been like 8 weeks, and I'm like, hey, where's it at? He's like, yeah, I lodged it with one of the guys at council. I call up council, it's not been lodged. and he's like, he's just got a mate there, and his mate said he'll do it, and it's just like, oh, cool. Now we're delayed from the build because this guy's, we trusted a plumber to bloody do plumbing, but it's not actually plumbing. It's these little 1%ers that will stall any deal. Like if that was a 10-lot subdivision or a 1:2, it doesn't really
imagine
matter.
the interest show. What about the interest, man? Where's the Gantt chart? Should we get the Gantt chart out?
Well, we haven't got any.
Maybe I need to micromanage
right?
Joe on this project.
We've still got the front house giving rent, like keeping,
I know.
like from a time frame wise, we're not. It hasn't cost us anything in terms of capital. It's just costed us time, which is annoying. But it's not. It's also not, the biggest priority. And it's just.
The way you're doing it is great. Like we can service the debt and do your first 1:2 and carve that off, where you don't have the pressure of like private money, and you said you had it done in 6 or 12 months, and because that can get interesting pretty quick, and that's where most people get wrapped up, is by that private money, because they'll wrap you up a lot quicker than the banks will, so they're a bit more forgiving. So if you can afford to service the debt and do a 1:2, 3, 4, great place to kind of learn the process and understand what the development approval is, and then your operational works or your construction certificate if you're in New South Wales, whichever way it is, it's learning that process, how long things take, and then once you start to understand that, then you can start get creative with your settlement timeframes and bits and pieces, because the bigger the site is a development site, like the more it is a development site as opposed to just a house on a big block that an investor and a developer wants, you can get better terms when people know it's a development site, because they know you've got to go get due diligence. They know you're probably going to want a longer settlement like that. That normally gets conditioned to them from an agent, hopefully. But
I love it. Sorry, I'm just cracking Gurav. He's like, maybe next time ask the barber. He's having a crack at your haircut, Joe. Gurav, man, he's coming out swinging. No, I think Joe's haircut's good. But no, what I want to say there to your point, Carson, about if you can sort of do it as a resi finance, because the moment you the moment a lender gets sniffed that you're going to sort of do it as development flip, if it's that 1:2, most of the time they're going to say, well, no, we're not going to fund it, because there's not enough fat in the deal for them. For the effort they have to go to and the processing and all that, they just don't like it. So to your point, and then you sort of get into the sort of conundrum of, and I've done this. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't be talking about it, but of knocking down a house before you even without even mentioning it to the lender, because you're like, well, crap. I don't have the finance to do the development, so I'm gonna do the subby, and then I'm gonna get the lending from somebody else. But you're actually in breach of the loan contract from doing that. So definitely do not. I was reading through a loan contract of mine the other day. I was like, oh yeah, intended use, and I was like, well, we knew what we were getting into, but we just thought, because the risk is. But yeah, anyway. So to your point, exactly. Like, at what stage are you seeing? Because I'm sort of wanting to get into that more development finance myself, funding it. Where do you sort of start to see the banks get interested in these days? Is it sort of that 3 to 5 million, or where do they get interested in doing it with you?
It's just hard with banks, because they're very risk averse. So they want full debt coverage or 50% debt coverage of pre-sales. So like we've got a 45 lotter in 2 stages, and the first stage is 21 lots at the moment. It's an acreage subdivision. And ANZ has funded that deal, but they wanted 50% debt coverage. So we, for our own peace of mind, started getting some pre-sales anyways, because it was an old strawberry farm and it was pretty cleared. So I could actually, I've got a little app on my phone where it shows the indicative layout. I can walk around with buyers and show them kind of where the blocks are going to be. So it was easy to pre-sell. But I've had other subdivisions where you're in the middle of the bush and you're trying to like stand there and say, this is your block. And it's just impossible to pre-sell that. Or you're going to take a massive haircut on your price. You might as well pay the private money and don't have any of those pre-sale requirements. So I don't know if it's necessarily what size. Banks don't normally like subdivisions. They prefer built form, typically, I've found, because you can't rent it out at the end. They just see it as a little bit riskier.
Definitely.
But they get all interest over that period of time, right? Like they're not owning the asset after 12 months or 18 months or however long the development takes. So it's
what they care about though, Joe, is if they have to sell, it's much harder to sell. It takes much longer to liquidate land. Like we've all seen, could take sort of 6, 9, 12 months, whatever it is. And they just want to be in and out. They want an asset that somebody's going to buy from straight away, like a mum and dad sort of owner occupier is going to buy it. They're not going, then they have to sort of figure that out. So that's where the risk is, probably.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, land's flying out the door at the moment, but it hasn't always been the case. It's always been clunky. We've had times in the last 10 years when APRA were doing their things and bits and pieces, it was clunky, and that when COVID first hit, before we kind of realised the world wasn't caving in, like those kind of 9 months, that was tricky as well. So, but outside of those, like land is easy to move, but if there's enough fat in the deal, the money will be there. Like it sounds weird, and when I first heard that, before I'd wrap my head around private money, it didn't make sense. But either, for a joint venture, like I had an email today, and we're getting emails frequently where people were just like, "Hey, we'll invest in your deals." And if you don't have those people, like when I started, it's hanging around communities, that where they are doing property development or want to get into it, and that's where I think you guys met through an event and bits and pieces. Like like that's where you meet these people that want to get into investment. So or get into property development if they're time poor, and they the property market's going to go up by 7 to 10%, but you've got a deal that's making 20%, and you're going to get out in 12 to 18 months, and they're going to make 60% return on their money, which is typically between 60 and 100%, is typically what our guys are earning on their stuff. Like that's an attractive proposition. And the first time I did that, I could only see my benefit. But now, as someone that will sit on both sides of the table, if someone brings me an amazing deal, I would be that 50% guy that would fund it. If it was a cracking deal. I don't want to fund average deals, but if it was a great deal, I'd be on that all day long. So there's plenty of those people that high net worth or got businesses and bits and pieces that would love to jump into a project. So if you can get good at finding deals and then presenting them in the correct way, then the money will be there. So and that took me a while to wrap my head around that private money, because like I said, I did joint ventures for such a long time where my joint venture party, if she left, I was like, I'm screwed. I will never be able to do another development site. Where am I going to fund these things? And then I went down that private lending rabbit hole. And once I understood that world and how that worked, all of a sudden the whole world opened up. And that's when we've kind of scaled like crazy in the last kind of 3 or 4 years. And the second subdivision we bought, there was a guy, he inherited the property. He did a DA for 4 lots, and he didn't have the money for the fees, the 60 grand he needed to get the DA over the line. He borrowed it off a friend of a friend at 4% a month, and he had no idea what he's doing. And
times by 12,
48%, Joe.
That's right. And he got it approved, sort of. It wasn't a graded approval. And then he started going to a private lenders to try and fund the deal because he had enough equity in the actual property. And he signed the deal with the private lender, and he had to make a few requirements. The private lender didn't give him a dime. And when we tried to buy it, they put a caveat on it, and he had to pay him out 50 grand, and they didn't lend him 1 cent. So there's the loan to own sharks out there as well. And and you also need to make sure, I didn't see the agreement, so it could have been legit, and he just didn't do what he said he was going to do. But, so I've for the first 3 years, I'm like, I'd never do private money. They're all sharks out there, and they'll just take your property and leave. So I was really scared to go into it. And then I watched some friends use it really well. And,
Can you just break down the difference? I know like it's pretty obvious. Like it might feel obvious for, but when you're starting out, what's the difference between private money and joint venture partners? Like, what are we talking?
So your joint venture party is hopefully someone that can get a loan from the bank, or get a commercial loan where you're telling them you're going to do a subdivision, or you might go in and buy it as an investment property. Don't tell them you get the DA and then finance it out. So in a perfect world, if I'm doing a joint venture, I want someone that can service the debt all the way through, and then hopefully have the working capital to get the approval, and also and also have that little bit extra if we don't get the uplift in the DA, the little bit extra to actually go into the construction finance as well. So that's your ideal candidate if you're looking for a joint venture party, someone that can service, has the capital to actually execute the project. So we're getting massive uplifts, sometimes nearly doubling the value of the property before we settle on DAs now, because we're getting such long settlements and we're getting it approved and you're getting that uplift. But when you're doing, you can't bank on that, right? Because there's no guarantees that it's all going to go well. So joint ventures are probably a safer way initially, unless you can get subject to a DA approval. For me, the way I think about it is, like, I've got a deal at the moment. It's about 35% margin that I'm looking at. It's a 10-lot subdivision, an hour out of the Gold Coast. So I know that gap between the 35 and the 20% is the uplift. So on my feasibility, so we're paying $2 million for the site, and I've worked it out. I've put in my feasibility. I just keep upping the price. And when I think I got to 2.6 or 2.7, it became a 20% deal. So I know once I get that approval, the bank will fund it on a 20% margin. So that 2.6, 2.7 million kind of soft equity is what I can use to actually go into the project as my deposit. So and that's where private money works really well. So like our last 4 or 5 projects, we're putting in less than like 7% of the total development costs and funding. Like the last one's like nearly a $12 million total development cost to fund the project, and I think we put in $700,000, but we got a lending proposal from our private lender where if we wanted to, we only had to put in like $250,000, and they would have put in mezzanine money, which is the top up in between the gap if you want to use it, and you'll pay like high 20% or something for that mezz money.
That's only sort of your 5 or 10%, if that, and that's like that sounds a high rate, but if once you blend that funds and then your overall sort of it's all part of the cap stack. And anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little bit technical here. Sorry, Joe. But I see one thing I wanted to mention. We've got Shannon in the comments as well. He's the other half of Salt Development. So I just wanted to acknowledge that Carson is a powerhouse. I don't know what you might be the Joe of the. Carson, you might be the Joe. Shannon might be the Jeff. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. You can both be Jeff or you can both be Joe.
Which one's the insult? Which one?
Shannon's the weapon. He's So when I was doing my first subdivision,
you can be Jeff. Yeah.
When I was doing the first subdivision, we'd kind of only just met, and I said, mate, I've found this good deal. The numbers work, I think, but I want to pitch it to this joint venture party, but I've got absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I said, to help de-risk it, can we say that can you manage the construction side of things? Because he was still learning like how subdivisions and all that work, but he knew that piece. So we offered to do the civil construction at cost, and I cut Shannon into that deal, and then it went well, and then we ended up starting a business together, and that's kind of how we started. So I've got an unfair advantage in the sense that he's got that civil construction background, because the feasibility is only as good as the numbers you're putting into it at the end of the day. And the questions I get asked the most is how much a lot to subdivide a block of land, or how much a townhouse does it cost to build? And everyone hates the answer. It depends, but it does, and
what spec you're building, like what sort of works need to be done on the site.
And that's, I didn't know the process. So now, like when we're coaching people, I'll say, look, when you're doing that, your engineer can actually help put those costings together for you. So, and I didn't know that initially. I was just ringing plumbers for pipes, and I didn't even know there was a civil contractor. That's how such a low base that I came from. I had no idea. So, but now, once you get that approval, like if you've scratched up, or your town planner scratched up a 4-lot subdivision, you can go to your engineer and go, can you tell me roughly how much this would cost? And they'll give you an estimate, or a rough bill of quantities to build that thing. And it's only rough, and you can add a 20% contingency on it, but it gives you some confidence to, okay, we've got some rough numbers now. We're not just plucking a number out of our bum, because we've done stuff for like 60 grand a block, and we're doing stuff now for like 210,000, 220,000 a block. So it's such a big range because, retaining, importing fuel, there's so many variables. Yeah. And that's where people get stuck. Retaining has crucified a lot of developers.
Oh yeah, because oftentimes, I mean, I don't know if we could go on about retaining and landscaping. And are you able? I will ask because I can't help myself. Are you able to get the landscaping and the retaining somehow bundled into the loan, or are you having to sort of do that as they call it a soft cost or hard cost? Which what are they doing with the retaining and landscaping these days?
Yeah, well, we kind of incorporate that all into our kind of civil construction. So that'll be part of our development finance that we get, and landscaping is a line item of that. So Shannon will do that as part of, but civil contractors, they don't work on massive margins. So as much as I've got, Shannon, and that's brilliant. If you find a good civil contractor and a good engineer, you got to remember most developers don't have a Shannon in their corner, that really understands civil construction. So if you find that good civil contractor that you built relationships with that have done, what you're looking to do in your area, and your engineer, he would have seen, if he's tendered out a few quotes, he's got a rough idea of what things cost as well. So
yeah, this is you could literally build almost a PDF for one pager based on how to actually run your development based on the things you're sort of sharing here. You're saying, okay, you got to then get the feasibility, like how to finance it, who you need in your corner with the team, because it's literally a process developing, and if you can kind of it's where you cut corners in that process, that's where you start to come unstuck. Speaking of which, I want to say, how do you, because this is something that we're sort of talking about the smaller starter developer now. How do you find, and I know you're mostly in Queensland, but it's kind of across the market. How are you finding profitable deals in New South Wales from 1 to 2 or 3, where the owner expectations is higher than market value as they understand there is? What do you think about that one? How do you answer that one? Go to a different site, maybe.
The good news is it's in every state. I don't know if that's good news, but I had a call with 2 people today, and they were like, "Oh, Perth, there's just no money." I was like, "Mate, that's everywhere. There's no 90%, 95% of the deals are rubbish, and that's the problem. People get all excited. Oh, I found a site I can subdivide now, but there's no money in it." Yeah. See, what we do is actually really simple, in the sense that we're just doing it's grade 5 maths, and you're allowed to use a calculator, and but it's hard in the sense you got to do mundane tasks over and over and over and over again. That's where people quit. It's going on realestate.com each day, putting in development, DA, subdivision into your keywords, into New South Wales, Queensland, or the general area that you're looking at targeting. Ringing the agents that have sold development sites and saying, "Hey, 5 John Street, that's a perfect site. If you get another one of those, bring it to me, and I'll give you the sales at the back end." Start dangling carrots left, right, and centre, so you're getting deal flow. So after these years, I had 6 deals come to me off market yesterday. After years of just every single conversation I end with an agent, I'm always dangling the carrot. Hey, if you find something, I'd love to get you to, you get first look at it to sell. You can't promise anything. You want agents bringing you deals, but most of my stuff's still on market, and it's just making offers where it makes sense. Like I've got 6 projects on the board now that I'm looking at. 3 of them we bought 3 to 12 months after they were listed, because sometimes the best negotiator is the market. Everyone comes in hot, and everyone looks at it and runs the fees and goes, "That doesn't work," and they move on. They forget about it. And like one of our best deals was on the market for 6 years, and I remember trying to flog it off to someone to another developer and said, and then COVID hit, the market took off, and I was like, all of a sudden that deal works. So I think it's just making offers. Like I try and make a couple offers. So I make on average 2 offers a week to buy 2 to 3 a year. That's the number.
How do you think about and that, I know that was music to Joe's ears as well, like that sort of, it's the same in residential, it's the same in any investing. It's literally, well, how do you then sort of, how are you actually how are you incentivizing the person to sell you that deal, and sort of just continue to do the boring mundane stuff? Unfortunately, it doesn't go viral, but it's kind of what you have to do if you want to be successful. What I want to say is, when you're looking at a development site, do you put multiple offers on the one side? As in, if you give us 12 months to settle, we'll give you X amount of money, whereas if you will give us 3 months to settle, we'll give you 100K less. Is that the kind of, or do you put? Is that too complicated?
No, not at all. Like, as Joe would know, the most critical thing is, what does the vendor want? Like, what's their circumstances? Like, and by asking enough questions and finding out what they want, you can generally structure a deal to get what you want. Or sometimes you can't, but at least you know. And a lot of people don't even ask. They just, especially developers, they just got this, fat checkbook, and they just want to kind of, it's not always the best price. It's understanding that, that, like one lady, she, had a cat buried out the back, and they wanted the bones dug up to go with them. And like another deal where, we wanted a long settlement, and she just wouldn't do it because she's like, I want to rent it for 12 months, and you're a 12-month settlement. I'm nervous that, if you need to come on site and do any reports and bits, you're going to upset the tenants. So I was like, okay, I'll rent it. Just let me sublease it for the 12 months. You're guaranteed with the rent you want. Let me sublet it, and then I'll manage that process. And she was like, that was like the biggest thing that she was worried about. And we just took that thing off the table. All of a sudden, she was happy. So it's understanding. And a lot of people get, and some lawyers might not like this, but I always release, once I go unconditional, I release the deposit. So they've got some cash in their hand. They can go on their Bali trip. They get all excited. So all of a sudden that 12-month settlement doesn't feel so bad if they've got $100,000 dropped into their bank account, right? And typically I can pay overs, because if I'm paying 12% interest on a $2 million loan, I can pay an extra $100,000 than the next guy, because if I settled today, I'd pay more than that in interest anyways. So it's a win-win for both parties. And a lot of these people are land bankers, and they've just got this magic number in their head that they want to get to, and they don't really care how you get there. And that's where options really work. So I've done options on 3 sites, and all 3 of them have been land bankers, where they've just got this number in their head, and the only way I can get there is for a call option or a put and call option. So, and we've had the option to then, we've been offered 7 figures on some of our deals before we settled, just to pass it on to another developer. The one we're doing now, we've just decided to settle and do it ourselves, because that was a $5.83 million purchase for us. It was valued at 10 before we settled on it. So, that uplift you can get by understanding the vendor's circumstances. They didn't care. They just wanted their number. So I said, look, I need 2 years. It ended up being 22 months. And they got what they want. We got what we want, and everyone's happy. So it's just understanding what the vendor wants and trying to structure a deal. And I guess that's where the education piece is, because you need the tools to put on the tool belt. Like, options are not going to work on the majority of deals. And if you try and use that on every single deal, you'll miss out on a lot of deals. And long settlements aren't going to work on every deal. Sometimes you just have to do a short settlement, and and it's just price, but you just might get a bit of due diligence where you can go meet with council and de-risk the project before you go unconditional. Like we always try and have pre-lodgements, unless it's just, and we know 100% it's code accessible. They can't knock back the DA. Otherwise, we're going to council and meeting with them. Otherwise, we're just not proceeding. So.
Yeah, and it's also recognizing that you can have anything, but you can't. Well, you can't even have anything, but you can't have everything. So don't go into the deal saying, "Great, I want a 12-month settlement. I want to pay the least amount of money," and it ticks absolutely 100% of the boxes. It's trying to also balance the deal. Otherwise, you'll never actually end up buying anything either. If you're too strict, like your 20 deals that you worked on before you bought the first one, I imagine that was probably some of the situations. Oh no, there's the vendor doesn't want to give me 12 months because they want to, they only want 8. I'm going to crash this deal. It doesn't work anymore.
8 months still works. You still make a good amount of money, I imagine.
Are people keen to see some of Carson's early, like smaller deals where he's made some substantial profit? But because I love that you're doing $100 million deals and 1 into 6 billion, lot subdivisions. But I don't care. That's not me. I'm not doing that. I want to know about the 1 into 3s, 5s, 10s, 20s, the stuff that's like just I could do that.
People are saying yes. Fire emoji. Drop 3 fire emojis or 2 if you want. Yeah, keep with the fire emoji.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how many lot subdivisions? How many fire emojis to put in?
Yeah.
Joe as well. Sorry.
Yeah,
you said before, did you make multiple offers? I didn't actually answer that question. So yeah, sometimes I will put Sorry, I always go on tangent, so bring me back if I do. So sometimes I'll actually have 3 offers. I'll have like the cash offer, like the really long settlement, crazy terms, which if they're probably not going to accept, and then probably something in the middle, or I'll just put 2 offers, like a really tight offer or a long settlement, and then kind of see which way they want to go, So that's if I can do either or. But yeah, sometimes I'll put multiple offers in there to see if I'm not sure exactly and the agent's not giving me much, then I'll give them both scenarios if I can do it. So,
Love it.
But yeah, look, those early deals that you're talking about, those multiple titles, we've done 2 on 3 titles. Like we did one recently in Tamborine Mountain. It was an old church that was asbestos ridden. It had termite ridden, and they lit a fire. Kids lit a fire in the back of it. And so a demo at the moment, we just did one recently. It's 25 grand. We spend between 25 and 40 grand. This demo was like 130,000 to do because it was we had to do a dirty demo. Like the asbestos was holding the place up. Like it was pretty crazy. So it was, but it looked terrible. But it was sitting on 3 titles, and we looked at it and went, "This is a cracking deal." It was on market. Everyone could see it. And we paid 915,000 for the deal. Like whether you could do this as a joint venture, it's a price point that a lot of people watching this could probably, the average house in the Gold Coast is more than that now. 915,000. All we did was clear the building and put the 3 titles back on the market. And there's like $650,000, $700,000 in that one deal, So they don't have to be.
Slides, Joe?
That's the one in Mount Tamborine. But if you've got new beef there as well, that's a really good first. That's a 4-lot subdivision that we did. That's a nice, easy one.
You'll have to. Oh, gee.
Well, before we go into the deals, we've got to run our sponsor, and then we'll come back. Go on.
Everywhere you look, someone else is making money in property except for you. Your mate, he just bought a house. It's already gone up $100,000. There's some bloke on Facebook. He's bragging about pulling in a 7% rental yield. Meanwhile, you're stuck scrolling real estate and domain, confused as hell, and having no idea about where to start. Or maybe you're that mate that's got $100,000 in equity. You have a few properties under your belt, but you feel stuck. You're unsure about how to scale without over-leveraging and not knowing what the next right move is. So why does it feel like everyone else has some kind of secret that you're missing out on? It's because they do. There's a reason some people keep stacking properties while others sit on the sidelines stacking excuses. There's a reason why some investors buy under market value while others pay too much. There's a reason why investors know the hot spots before there's any heat. And there's a reason that some people build $150,000 in passive income while others just spend years thinking about it. And it comes down to knowledge. And that's exactly why Jeff Miles and I, Joe Tucker, created the Level Up Property course to hand you the exact step-by-step process that we've used to buy over $100 million worth of property in today's market. We've built Australia's largest property investment community with over 80,000 members, and we help everyday investors secure hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, all without wasting years of their life trying to figure it out the hard way. Making an uneducated decision on the biggest purchase in your life is just gambling with your future.
Stop it. Get some help.
And this isn't just another how to buy property course. Let's be clear though, this course isn't free. What? And neither should it be. This is our life's work. We've spent over 100 hours each on this course alone.
Oh, babe. Okay, video number 3. Number 4 with million does... Fuck. Done.
We've got decades of experience, millions of dollars in deals distilled into a repeatable process that you can take away for yourself. If you're looking for free advice, there's plenty of noise out there. You can go and find that if you'd like. But if you want real, actionable, step-by-step guided process that works in today's market, then this investment is going to change everything for you. By the time that you finish this course, you will have full confidence. You'll have every tool that you need to build an amazing portfolio if you act on it, right? Which is why we have mentoring built in. So we kick you up the butt to make sure that you're kicking your goals. So the real question is, how much longer are you going to watch everyone else making money in property before you jump in and start playing the property game properly? Because the sooner you start, the sooner you start winning.
Oh, that's amazing.
Make it a little fun. We try and make it a little fun. Yeah, good. I'm keen to unpack your deal, mate, because like I look at this. What was the site? Not 30 lot. Jesus Christ, you have done like. How do you think? Actually, one of the questions I have is how do you think about this and like frame it in your own mind? Because you're doing. I'm like looking at these deals: 70 lot subdivision, 45 lot subdivisions. Like, how do you think about that? Because how do you go from 1 to 3 into 70?
Like it's weird. It actually gets easier in the sense that the deals make sense because your mistakes are multiplied. But once you get a really good team around you, like the stormwater is easier to manage on the bigger the site is. Like it's easier to move the lots around. Like it's easier. I mean, you think about it from a finance point of view. If you're a private lender and you've got $100 million, you got to get out the door. Do you want to give it to 10 guys, or do you want to give it to 50 guys and manage that? So there's more money for the bigger deals. So everything gets a little bit easier as you get bigger. Like I said, sorry.
It's the same with like acquisitions, right? Like I see this time and time again. Like the most competitive market right now is where everyone can afford, which is $500,000 to $1 million, right? There's deals then at that $1.5 million, like $1 million to $1.5 million that people just can't afford. Like I feel bad for agents. I don't feel bad for agents. So it's probably not the right word.
I don't feel bad for the buyers agents anyway.
They just don't. Like there's no one there buying them. And when you're the guy that does it, it means you can negotiate terms. Like you can negotiate a lot harder because you're not one of 100 anymore.
You're right. The sweet spot for kind of a lot of development is like that 6 to 50 lots, because the big boys don't want to play below 50 lots, and you're kind of out of mum and dad's once you get over 6 lots. So I find you can carve out a really good business in that kind of 6 to 20 lots even. Like that's because like I said, they only want the big stuff for the big boys, and then a lot of people can't afford more than $2-3 million. So that's where it gets a bit easier because you start to weed out the competition a little bit. So and it's weird because like we've just put all our money back into the other deals. Like me and Shan are still paying ourselves less than the median wage to so all this stuff is just going into, like my wife watches the $100 million that she goes, where's the money gone? I was like, oh no, stop watching the stuff because it's just going into the next deal. So and at some point we'll kind of we'll buy some commercial property in bits and pieces, and we sweet because we played the long game. But at the moment, it just kind of, I don't know. I don't really know how to answer the question, but it does get easier as things get bigger. That's for sure. So,
I just wanted to bring this up. Sorry, but as a proud dad myself, proud of you, Daddy. Love Cody. So your kids, somebody's on the stream watching you. Well done.
Good on you, Cody.
How good's that? That's part of the reason why I want to bring that up. We're showing some deals, Joe. What about the deals? I know we're not.
Like though.
Sorry, man.
Don't expect.
It's Christmas is coming up soon. There's only 3 months away.
Mate, all my spare money goes to her dance fees. Don't worry about that. So,
would get competitions as well, I imagine.
Which
deals? What are some of the more? You said the Mount Tambourine up to the church.
Yeah, there's one called Newbeath. There's a 4-lotter there that we did in Newbeath.
Gold Coast?
No, Logan. So it's 4 lots, Logan. It's a little triangular one. Anyways, just to explain that one. So cool. We paid $910 for that property.
First deal and private lender.
That's the one. Yeah. So we actually sent a letter out, and like I said, it's a grind. So when I was getting frustrated, there was nothing on market. Like the person that asked the question in New South Wales, I was like, all right, I can only do so much, but I've got to make this work. So I just started sending letters out. So there's some software called Stash that you can use. You can find sites off market. A lot of buyers agents use it now, Joe. You probably have heard of it, and they're actually more targeting buyers agents than they are developers these days. But it's a great piece of software to kind of identify off market. If you know the zoning, you know the size you want, you can do it. So I sent this lady a letter, and she said, look, an agent just told me it's worth $850. Just recently asked her, what do you think it's worth? And so I said, okay, well, can I come out and have a look? Because I did a quick feasibility on it again. I was like, this is probably going to work. So I met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, these bigger lots as well are hard to value, right? Like, well, this one across the road was 2 acres, but this one's 3 acres, but it's got rubbish all over it. It's not like, how do you kind of value that? So it does get a little bit hazy for the buyers. Sorry,
sometimes
for the
it's
vendors.
better when the house is manky as well, because like they're not expecting this crazy price because they know the house is rubbish and they knew it was going to get bulldozed. So sometimes if you've got a nice house that goes over and you have to bulldoze it to get, like, you actually lose all that value. So it's so like this one here, like I said, they offered $850. I said, look, I want a 6-month settlement. So, and they're like, well, we want 900, and we end up at 910. So, and they said to me, look, I knew a developer would knock on our door one day, and so they were kind of expecting that, a golden handshake, I suppose, because, and this was after COVID, so this was when the market was really hot, and so we got this for like 910. We sold the blocks. I think it was 600 for lot 1. For lot 2, we paid $595 for lot 1, $590 for lot 4, and then there's a funny shape, lot 3. I sold that for $510 just because we need the cash to go into another deal. But for a project, so that was shovel ready before we settled. It was valued at about 1.2 before we settled. I actually borrowed some funds off the folks to give us the last little bit that we needed, and we were in and out of that project from the moment we settled. We settled the last block. It was 5 months. So that only took 6 weeks because only a little concrete driveway. I love acreage subdivisions because there's no sewer, and this one had no water. So all we did was build the driveway, put the electrical through the site or just to the front of each block, and then do a bit of fencing. That was it. So
pretty simple. Why is that for acreage? What's the situation with that?
Sorry, what was the question?
Why is acreage, like, why do they not mess around with water?
Because there's no sewer and water there. So, but in those areas, you're allowed to have tank water, and you do your own home treat mixed septic plant. Your builders do it for you. So when people are like, if they're not from the area, they're like, oh, what? No sewer, no water. I mean, I grew up on the farm, so that was just normal. But in particular areas, if you're not close enough to services and it's zoned rural residential or R5 in New South Wales or wherever you are, then you don't have to put sewer and water in. And you need to talk to your planner and confirm that this is the case.
Here I am waiting for a bloody, 8 weeks for a jump up that's not coming, and you don't have to worry. You
definitely need it in Townsville, Joe.
Yes.
Or in metro towns, you know what I mean.
So just I just want to go back to the letter drop. Did you send multiple? Was it like you did one batch of like 50 people, 50 addresses, and then called them, and then sent another lot, or how does that kind of look like?
So it was painful. So I sent out about 950 letters before I got this one, and I probably burnt a few of them because I had no idea. I did a course on options, and they were like, just try and get everything under option, and so I ended up doing this as just a delayed settlement instead of an option. But so it was a grind because you're paying your $1.50, whatever stamps are these days. And it's not a scattergun approach. Like, I'm literally looking at the site, checking the koala overlays, the flooding, the bushfire, spending 15 minutes on it before I identify that's even one worthy of putting in the letterbox. Whereas some people just do scattergun approach if they're just an investor and they're looking in that area and they like the street or that suburb. But I'm literally targeting them. So it's taken me, like, it was months and months of work to find that one, but we made $770,000 out of that, and that was one of our first subdivisions that me and Shannon. This was the first one. So Shannon was working for BHP, and then he quit, and we started this deal, and then we rolled into the next one. This was like our first little baby that kind of got us up and running. That scaled into the next one. So, like, I always say to people, like, this is the perfect first little subdivision, 1 into 4, 1 into 5. Okay.
So
Can we ask the one about? I mean, obviously you didn't have too many issues, but do you have any sort of challenges selling?
But look at those. Look at the blocks. I mean, they're bloody massive. I mean, what's that square meter? I think if the blocks are like 400, 300, 400, that's a little bit of a concern. But you go. Sorry, Carson.
Yeah, so these are 1 acre blocks. So it looks really skinny, and so lot 3 was quite skinny at the front. So the house probably needed to be set back halfway down the block. But yeah, the more funky they are, the harder they are to sell. But I got another triangular one on the one we're selling at the moment, and we sold it 20 grand less, but it's still sold for really good money. So people will still buy them. But you're right, when you start getting into smaller lots, like we're doing we're doing a 29 lot subdivision at the moment on the Gold Coast, and the blocks are really awkward and tight, and some of them are funny shaped, and it's going to be, we know those ones are going to sell for less. So it just is what it is. But the reality is, you get that extra lot in, instead of trying to, a lot of people are like, I'll just make it, we won't get that extra lot, we'll make it really nice, but it kills your yield. You'll still sell it, you just sell it a bit cheaper.
So. That's such a great point. Yeah, so you could, let's just say you could have done, you could have made 3 lots and made all the lots rectangular, but no, I'm fine with them triangular and a little bit ugly because I'm getting 4 lots. So that disparity difference adds up. Such a great point.
The reality is, I might have got, say, 610, 620 a block for those if I'd just done 3 larger ones, but I've got 600, like I said, 595, 590, and I had to sell the lot 3 for 510, but it's still a way better sellout because to create that extra lot cost me next to nothing. I'm already putting that concrete driveway in anyways. I've got 1 little extra connection for the power. It cost me 20 grand, 30 grand to do that extra lot, because the rest of it was happening anyways. So that's where one block can make and break a feasibility when you're doing 4 lots, and then you get that 5th, all of a sudden it works, but if it's 4, it doesn't, So,
I wanted to ask this one because I think it would be after all costs, stamps and interest. Is that before tax?
Correct. That's after all costs, and that's after why is my brain not working? Margin scheme as well. So
okay. You claim
So I'll pay tax, obviously my company rate tax on that 770 after that. But for a 5-month project that we only put I think Shannon and I actually borrowed all the money off our folks for that, so we didn't have any of our own money in that deal.
Can we talk to this deal a little bit more? Because I see this number. You've got $750,000 on one deal, so you made $750,000 in 5 months. How did you do that? I know we covered it off and talked to it, but can we talk to the number side of things? So you bought it for $910. What strategy cost? It cost $615,000 all in with finance.
That's your finance, because the construction piece, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, was about 170 grand on this block, and then we had the finance, we had the other bits and pieces your consultant fees and bits and pieces, and that's your I've included like I said, the margin scheme, because you lose 10% ish on each of the block. So I've included that in a strategy cost, which a lot of people wouldn't, but that's kind of, for me, they take it at settlement. So, the actual, it's not like selling a t-shirt. When you pay the GST later, they know they're onto people that used to skip the country. So as soon as you make that sale, the solicitor sends it straight off to the ATO and away you go.
They're very strict on it. What I was going to say, Carson, with that, if you're, I imagine you probably met your accountant pretty early in the piece, because you need to get an accountant that specializes or has a pretty good understanding of development, because that's the thing with my first one, Jeremy, I sort of did it a little bit before speaking to Jeremy, but always speak to your accountant to sort of make sure you've factored in all the taxes and all that. And the big one is that margin scheme, and make sure that you're registering as well for that as well, because if you're not registering it,
you got to.
I know, but it's a box in your tick. But did you how did you meet your accountant who was helping you out with this? Was it through networking? Or?
Well, during this one, we had a very interesting accountant that we moved on from. So we've got a good accountant now. We had a great lawyer that we said, look, can you recommend an accountant? So yeah, you really need to find a good accountant that understands development finance. I'll second that for sure, because a lot of accountants are like, yeah, we do it, but you want to say, well, how many developers you got on your books? Like, actually understand, what, because I like to get my solicitor and the accountant in the room as well, because one's thinking about, being tax effective, the other one's thinking about asset protection, and you need them to be on the same page, and kind of hash it out. And sometimes they disagree, and then, but it's good to not always get them in the same room, but yeah, especially as deals get bigger, they get more complicated, and there's different things. But a good accountant is weight in gold.
Getting two people in the same room is very tough, but it's also like you're responsible. You're like Carson's the one that then speaks to the accountant, speaks to the broker. I know obviously you're really using brokers in this instance, but speaking to the accountant, the finance guy, but then saying, oh, but I was chatting with the conveyancer, the solicitor, and he said this. Why is that a bad idea? Or like you're saying this. Why are we in conflict right now? And then he's going to be like, well, I'm looking after your protection. He's looking after your tax. What do you care about? And then you can you do have to kind of be switched on. You do need to be asking the questions as well about the individual teams, because they are more focused on different things. Same with brokers as well. Like from a residential deal, the amount of brokers that are like, oh, let's go 5% yield. It's like, well, 5% yield doesn't really exist out here, but they want the serviceability to be able to then go for the next one. But then in reality, will accept a 4%.
I'll let you in on a little secret, Joe. 5 to 4% is not moving the needle that much. If somebody can't buy a 4% yield deal, it's really not, like you're talking literally. Then it's super tight. They probably need to consider a different lender. So, but anyway,
I just want to hit on this development, because $770,000 is just a ridiculous number. So well, let's just pretend you had the money. Like, what would actually go into this deal? So you would have, because you borrowed money from your parents, and not a lot of people have that, but a lot of people do have investment portfolios that have equity, and they've got a little bit of cash savings. So if we were to think about a 770 net profit deal, like what?
So overall, if you structure that deal like we did, we got that longer settlement, and you can get a line of credit, get some working capital. Like, so that DA only cost us, it was like $50,000 to $70,000 to execute that. That's all the town planning fees, the council fees. We had an ecologist for the trees. We had a bushfire consultant, and we had our engineer design the driveways and bits and pieces. And so they're kind of like the 5 consultants. And if you're starting out, your town planner, go interview 3 town planners, because they're your conduit to everybody else. They'll know a good bushfire consultant, a good engineer, hopefully, if you've got a good down planner. So if you're starting out, you don't understand the game, the best advice I can give you is go buy an hour's time of 3 different town planners in the area that you want to work in, and try and wrap your head around the development and what you're looking for. So, if you're in New South Wales, your R1, R2, R5 zonings, what are the minimum lot sizes? What am I looking for in this area? What do I have to be careful of, the koala and the flooding, and and the same thing in whatever state you're in, understanding the terminology, how long DAs take, because it's so different from state to state. Like Victoria can take a little bit longer in WA. Sometimes the lead time for Western Power's really long. Like in Queensland, certain councils own their own sewer and water infrastructure, and then you get like Brisbane and say, Moreton and Ipswich, you've got to go to urban utilities, whereas, Logan and Gold Coast, they look after their own sewer and water connections. So understanding those little nuances, how long things take, a really good town planner will be able to, so it's the best money you ever spend. If you're thinking about getting into it, spend the $600. The reality is half of them won't even charge you because they want your business. But if you offer it and respect their time, it's the way to do it.
100%. I think that's the key point there of being offered. No, I will pay you because I value your time. They love it. They'll spend 3 hours with you because they appreciate that you understand the knowledge. And it's only when you start to pay for something that people realize that that you're actually interested and knowledgeable. We've got to run to our final sponsor, but I do want to dive into Q&A. So if anyone has any specific questions, throw them into the comments now. And yes, okay, well, bring some better ones and we'll answer those as well.
Oh, Jeff, I wish there was 3 investing books that covered everything property.
Oh, Joe, there is. Steve has 3 books now.
That I do, guys. I've got 3 books now. You probably don't even have to follow this group anymore. Just kidding. You want to keep seeing and hearing from me, of course, so stay involved. But in all seriousness, if you want to get the full picture of investing, residential, commercial, and development, these 3 books have you covered for the fundamentals. For OzProp members, here's the best part. I'm giving these books to you for free. Just cover the postage and I'll send them right to your door. Go to policyproperty.com or click the link below and get your copies today. You can also get all my spreadsheets, checklists, and resources free on my website. Happy reading, gang.
Anyone that comes to the live event gets all 3 books for free as well. So see you guys Sunday.
No free contract reviews. If you've been to a meetup or 2, then you know what that. Yeah, as a joke, it's now going around other groups as well, Joe.
Are all books signed? That's my question. Do you get a?
Are all books signed?
Well, anyone that
I want Jeff to sign mine. I think he's taller than Steve. So anyway, I think well, I want to unpack at least 1 or 2 more deals. Maybe 1, 2 could be ambitious, but let's.
What's another great one? What do you reckon?
Should do a bigger one. Who wants to do a bigger deal?
The next one's pretty good as well. The Jim Boomer one. If you go, not the Clydesdale one, but the Missouri Street one. It's like 2 after the New Beef one that we just looked at. I think. Maybe not.
Just bring it up.
Logan as well. It's 11 lot subdivision.
11. There you go. That's the one.
Yeah. So that was on the market for 6 years, that property. And
what are we looking at? This. Oh no, that's a lake.
Yeah. So you've got. So that's not a lake. That's a stormwater basin. So so that's 11 lots. That road initially when we picked up that DA, where we've got that cul-de-sac where it changes to the concrete driveway, got that cul-de-sac head that you can see. That road used to go all the way to the end, and where it goes out of screen is actually another road that backs onto it. We shortened the road up because we thought, what's the point of going all the way through to the other side? So it's 2 roads frontages. So we saved a lot of road that we didn't have to build. We also got told that there was all these koala offsets that we had to pay, and because it was such an old approval, there's actually a house up the top left-hand corner. They carved 1 block off to keep the DA in perpetuity. So if you do it in multiple stages, if the first stage gets carved off, the DA doesn't die, essentially. It stays alive. So this is one of those ones where they just had a big number on it. There was 2.25 at the time. Blocks were only selling in the $400,000 range. And then COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, I was watching a block. This is one of the ones I had saved for like years in realestate.com as one of my, saved properties. And I saw a block come up for sale and I was like, if that goes, I saw the market going everywhere, and Logan took a little bit longer to go. And all of a sudden it sold in the first week. And I rang up the agent. I said, he goes, it sold for $550 and I've had, people miss out. And if I had 10 of these, I would, be able to sell them really quickly. So I was like, So I said, well, let's put it under, so we got the put and call. So just for people to understand, put and call option is you got the, you don't actually, it's not a contract, and there is a contract behind the option, but you basically sign an agreement that you control the property during that period. So I'm not on the title. It's not like a long settlement, because in Queensland you've got to pay stamp duty interest after 3 months if you do that. So options are really good, so you can avoid that, and that's probably one of the biggest ways to actually get it over the line. And you can also on-sell it without incurring stamp duty, which is why I love stamp duty. You can put a nominees clause in the actual option document, because remember, we don't own it, we just control it, and we're just passing on that piece of paper, and then they can settle it themselves.
Just going to put this one up. Information general nature. Go and speak to your solicitor and conveyancer, mostly probably solicitor, but yeah, about that one.
100%.
Anyway, and about everything of this. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're very unlucky. Bolt 74. People change. Can people change how much commission would you pay?
I imagine these kids are pretty good on YouTube.
This is my son. This is my other son. I owe him commission on a deal. He's still upset. He's still salty. I haven't paid him yet. So it comes at the end of the year. But it's he found the deal we're doing at the moment, and I'm paying him a $5,000 spotter's fee. So he's
Bolt 74. You need to ask more than that.
Big second shells. Shells at Woolies.
He just sent me a link on Domain, so I figured $5,000 is pretty good. And for people that say it's hard to find sites, yes, it is. But my 15-year-old son, he was 12 when he found that site. I just showed him, these are the keywords you put in. I want you to run it through this little kind of these are the overlays you look at, and then don't send it to me unless you've done that. So, us adults can do it when kids can do it. It is pretty simple process, and then once it gets more complicated, you send it to your town planner. So, so that deal, we settled it. It was valued at paid 2.25. It was worth 3 when we settled, and that was so we put $100,000 down for the deposit. Once again, $70,000 to change the DA and improve it, and to get it operational works approved. So once you've got a development approval, you have to do the detailed design of the roads and the levels and all that, so a contractor can actually build the thing, as opposed to just a conceptual layout, if you like. So we got it shovel ready. So the time we settled, so we're in and out of that project in 12 months. So and that was as you can see,
we had a 15-month put and call option, but you got it all done and dusted sooner than you expected.
So it took us 15 months to actually get the approvals through. Not that long, but we waited to the 15th month to settle. Because we wanted the market was still up. There was no need to settle and start it. And we actually put in the option, a document to get the we wanted to clear the trees under the option. So we actually cleared the trees before we even settled on the property. So
wow, that's
fantastic. That's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And this is the other reason why we're to prove to the valuer, we've got it shovel ready. We've shortened the road. We've got the offsets removed from the koala side of things, and we've already cleared the trees. This property is worth a lot more than what it was when we bought it. And so by showing those things and showing the comps, and all of a sudden the blocks were selling for $650, all of a sudden it was a cracking deal. Our fees though was only like 1.45 when we went to do the deal, and we had a bit of cream, obviously.
I told you, Joe. We need to start Oz property developers. It's
what are we doing? We're doing you purchased this for $2 million, you spent $2 million, and you made $2.7 million
in about 15 months, roughly.
Yeah. So it's actually a 2-year project, but we actually physically only owned it. So we controlled it for that 15 months, and then from the time we bought it to the time we did the construction, settled out, it was 12 months. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
And I think a lot of people also don't think about 15 months of owning it and doing all of the work. You're getting nothing, nothing but expense. It's costing you all this money and all of this time, energy, effort, all of this difficulty. It
takes a lot of resilience.
It takes a lot, because I don't think a lot of people have that kind of that mindset of, no, this is 3 years. I'm not going to get anything. It's going to a money pit. But what are you going to do otherwise? What are you going to do with money otherwise?
And you can do it on the side. If you don't have a cent, if you pitch that deal to a sophisticated investor or developer, they'll do that deal all day long and take 50% of the profits and just and kind of just watch the deal. You just need to hang around communities like what you guys are doing, and you'll find people that and not everybody's going to be into development, and it does come with a lot of risks. It's obviously your straight investment is a lot less riskier, but obviously the upside's a lot bigger as well. So you need to learn the skill, but it's not rocket science. And
I feel like we probably didn't ask as much of the challenges or the risks and all that, which we have done a few developing sort of potties. So go back and watch those ones. We won't. Rebecca asked this one, and she's super passionate, watches every week. So she says, how do you train? How did you get your kids kind of? Yeah, maybe I'm asked this a little bit selfish as well. How did you get them interested in property and developing? Was it the money or was it something else?
Early days, I just bribed them with Macca's McFlurries to come to open homes with me, and bits and soft serves. But I think for the most part, it's well, the kids aren't really interested in it, to be honest. Like they're if they are, like my son,
I think the default's more pumped that you're on YouTube than property development.
They couldn't kill it. So
everybody wants to be in an influencer.
So look, I think if they got some interest, like at the end of the day, I said, look, guys, I was a carpet cleaner for 15 years. What do you want to do? Like, this is an option if you want. It's a skill you can learn. Like I said, out of all the property developments, like before we did our first deal, I found a deal and just sold the company because I couldn't get an option to another person for $540,000 in 2 months. So finding the deals is where the money is, because if you're terrible at managing, getting a project manager, you just got to find deals with enough fat in it. So that's the most important skill set in my eyes, is actually finding the lucrative deals.
You make money when you buy, not when you sell, and it covers up a lot of mistakes as well. Like if you can negotiate a really, really good, valuable deal, then it's going to cover up any 8 week of plumbers messing about, right? Because we bought it well. It doesn't matter. Like 8 weeks is just nothing.
I didn't know this had affected you that much, Joe. Do we need to debrief after the show, mate? Do we need to sit you on the couch? Well, we can have a chat about it, mate. Sunday we can. Anyways, I wanted to ask: are there any I mean, we don't want to throw any counts on the bus, but we will. Just maybe. Are there any councils you might reconsider?
With
deal again for developing, Carson?
Look, in my part of the world, like I'm doing some stuff in New South Wales and in southeast Queensland. Tweed is terrible. So talking about some of the bad things, we knew Tweed was going to take a long time. Like a lot of developers just go straight to Land Environment Court because, like, we did a 30-lot subdivision. It took us 2.5 years to get the approval, and then the construction certificate, the development next door, took 18 months. But because of that, once again, we make all of our stuff has warts on it. So I see that as an opportunity, because you talk to every developer about Tweed, they're like, not going to Tweed, it's terrible. So we bought that site really, really well because it had a few issues. It was in Tweed, and just by getting the approval, it's doubled in value. So we could on-sell it, double our money now, walk away. So if you double we paid $2 million for the site, and this was a joint venture, so I couldn't service that debt. I knew it was going to take long, and I wasn't willing to take a private lender on for 3 years, and I didn't have the cash, so I had to find a joint venture party that could actually service the debt for that 2 years. But she's made $1 million, we've made $1 million if we were to exit now, but we're doing the CC, and we'll continue on with the development. But Tweed is like Tweed, Byron, Ballina. Byron's getting a little bit better because it's very green, but the state government's breathing down the back of their neck, and they need to create more dirt, so they've got a lot of pressure. Otherwise, a broom will go through them. But yeah, Tweed's probably the one I'd stay away from if you're starting out. It's very clunky, and they're proud of it. So,
NIMBYs.
Yeah, 100%.
What were some of the things that we should have covered off that we haven't, like those things that we need to think about that we haven't talked too much about, Carson?
Like I said, I think building the good team, understanding private finance, or just finance in general. Like, it's as much a money game as it is, and then getting good at finding the deals, and learning the art of negotiation and on market, off market. So I think it's a reasonably simple process once you understand. Like it's not simple when you're starting out, but it's not complicated. Like I'm a carpet cleaner. Like I just employ really smart people. And the good thing about development, like we got, like you say, $100 million worth of projects on the go. It's just me and Shannon. That's the thing I love about it. And it's just emails and phone calls. Like it's not like for the first 5 years, I was still working full time cleaning carpets. Like you can do it on the side. You could have one little subdivision on the side, and you're just giving the town planner a nudge, giving the contractor a nudge. Like it's actually a reasonably, like as opposed to doing renos, for example, it's very labor intensive. If you're doing reno flips full time, you're slugging it out, you know. But there's a lot of risk as well. It's structuring the deals and you know, understanding what the pitfalls are, and if you don't get the approval, like we've got a thing. What happens? Can you handle the worst case scenario? If the answer is no, you don't buy the deal. You know, so that's still our standpoint, and our margins. Most developers are working on 20% margins. Most of ours are 30 to 40 because we're targeting really hairy sites and solving the problems. So that's what I look for, because if it's a corner block, you know, that can be subdivided into 2 or 3 lots and it's flat, every man and his dog's going to buy it. A builder's probably going to buy it, and he was just happy that he gets it for a little bit less than land value when he's finished. Like he's not even looking at it, you know. So you want stuff that's got a few little challenges. That's probably our little niche that we've gone after is just those little, you know, sites that got a few more warts on it that the average punter doesn't want to. Like, once again, if it's too hard, people just give up. Like I'm always shocked at like that one in that church that we knocked down. Like it was already on 3 tiles. It just looked terrible from the road.
Yeah, plus it's the church.
Yeah, well, that's right. But you know, but it was we looked at could we restore it, but it was literally falling down. Like the demo guys had to stop halfway through when they were pulling out the asbestos because the building was falling down. So
you're looking for a Joe, are you? Is it Mount Terrian Green is the church, I think, isn't it? Joe's playing around the background. But
yeah,
no,
sorry.
Amazing, Carson. Look, I was going to say for people, I want to get guests like Carson. So you were actually introduced by Heather Jordan. Heather will be at the event on Sunday. So thanks, Heather, for that. And you're a heavy hitter yourself, Carson. So you're very super humble as well. Look, guys, drop us a 5-star and share this around on Spotify as well, team. Unfortunately, Fiona, Carson isn't going to be at the event on Sunday. I did ask, but we've got a lot of Jeremy in the Zelly is going to be there. 25 million. I think it's like 30 million. Every time I speak to him, it goes up a couple of million, he says. And we've got Michael Lynn. He's big in brooming. You might know Michael, actually. I think he's in your, Yep. But we've got. I've attempted to collect some people. I tried to get Michael Shah because he's the 80 property investor. But it's going to be a huge event. It's going to be lots of fun, and there's an after party as well for people who are interested in that. I'll be there till about 10 o'clock before I head home and turn into a pumpkin. But Carson, Joe asked. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
How do we get? Is that car?
Pumpkin in our life.
Pumpkin? What the hell is that about?
Cinderella. Come on.
Oh, sorry. One of the things that I love, I found out about you, Carson, is you're a big part of this unemployable media.
It's property now, though, Joe. Unemployable property. Yeah.
Yeah, you've created that. This is a fantastic podcast. Like, I don't have much time to listen to great podcasts, but one of the Unemployable is on my rotation. So if anyone wants a great podcast, have a listen to that. Carson, you've created Unemployable Property, so it's going to become like a property related development podcast, which I imagine if it's anything like, I mean, you've already got sessions running, which have been awesome. So it's awesome. How do people get more Carson in their life? If they want more Carson in their life, how do we go out and do that?
Yeah, like I said, Unemployable Property, like we've got a little Facebook group where we're just adding nuggets and value in there. So that's probably the best place where we're putting updates on what we're doing on our projects. We're very hands-on. So, we're always just kind of, and we're learning every single day. Like it's, you don't stop learning in this game. So, and there's lots of other developers kind of sharing their wins and nuggets and also their losses. So that's probably the best place. And like I said, the podcast where we're doing, we've got all sorts of topics, but one of the topics that we've come on board to do is run the unemployable property side of things. So that's, we've got all sorts of different guests and interesting people that we interview on there. So, check it out.
Yeah. Development's definitely not an area that we talk to very much in this session, like in this environment. It's more, so check that out for sure. Oh yeah, got the Facebook group there. Yeah, go join the group.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Greg's in it. He got his finger in a lot of pies. He invited me along. I was like, oh, there's a group. He's like, yeah, you're not in it, so he invited me along. He's a super fan of a lot of people. So I don't know. I'm disappointed Greg can't make it Sunday, but that's okay. But no, Carson, amazing. Thanks for just love your story, man, and keep on kicking goals, man. Hopefully your Gold Coast Suns kick a few goals against the Lions. Like it almost feels like a little brother versus bigger brother. So I'm going to be riding the Suns home. So hopefully they destroy the Pies. I think they have the Pies that make to the prelim. So that'd be
That's it. I've adopted them since the Eagles are bottom of the ladder, mate. I've adopted the Suns, so I'm jumping on the bandwagon for the finals, and that should be good. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having us on, boys. Much appreciated, and mate, that event sounds awesome. I'm sorry we can't be there. So,
let's go buy a property. Catch you later, guys. Cheers, Carson.
Thanks, boys.